start streaming.
I have an ulterior motive. I'm going to say, excuse me, buddy, move over.
Okay. So apparently what's happening now is when I go live, yeah, here we are. When I go live, it just goes live. What used to happen is I would start streaming and I'd have a little ability to preview what was happening before I hit go live. But now YouTube is just going live. So here we are, a couple minutes before I intended to get started, and we are just checking all the sound and video and everything to make sure, since I normally would, like I said, be doing this beforehand. Boom. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Critical Q&A number 540 for this Sunday, April 26th, in the year of our Lord, 2026. Happy that you are here with me today. And, I'm just kind of, not a lot on my mind. I have a few post-it note of gory talking points to go over here today, but mostly it's just kind of going to be reacting to what y'all have for me. I see some comments coming in. Let's go ahead and flip over to the host and chat screen so we can see your comments as they come up on the screen. And then let's also do our usual business of getting the Q&A box going with, please put your questions here and start Q&A. And yes, every day is a good day to not be in jail. That is very, very true. I will take it. All right. So we're getting into our official start time now. So why don't I go ahead and begin our show with our fig cam. I got some of my wonderful little pets. There we go. This was Fig about 25 minutes ago when I shot some video of him in the living room. And you can see him being a little stretch monster there. Oh, there he is, just looking up. So cute. Look at this little bundle of furry joy. This is him pretty much all the time, is just jumping into the lap and wanting the attention and wanting all of the pettings. He wants all the pettings all the time. It's a 24/7 petting operation with him. So that's him wandering around in the living room this morning. And of course, Mel's got her little TikTok channel going with him. You can see the address there on the screen. But if you are down for some fig cam, well, there you go this morning. You can see him stretching about. There he goes. Okay, let's go back over here. He has just been so fun to watch as he learns and as he realizes things. It's so fun. It's like I'm sure it's like with children, as you make them aware of new things or condition them into stuff or, repetitively go over the same things. And then you see the moment where it crosses over into an understanding. And it's just so cute. It's so cute with him when we're trying to teach him, even basic. It takes weeks to get the concept of fetch because he can get the idea of I throw something and he goes and gets it, but it's his. It's not getting it for me. He's getting it for him. So when he brings it back over and I try to take it from him, he's like, "What are you doing? This isn't yours. You don't get this. I went and got this." So it's funny how some of these assumptions I've made about, how dogs just naturally fall into these things they do. It's like, no, you have to train them how to do that. And another one is when he just going out on a walk. The first couple of times we went out for just taking a walk around the neighborhood, he was so timid, so freaked out, so like, what's that? What's that? What's that? It took like 20 minutes just to get 15 feet down the road. And now when I take him out for a walk, he's taking me for a walk. He's like leading pulling at the leash, can't wait to go see his friends, around the block, or, the barky dogs 2 blocks over. And he's just leading the way, right? So it's just so fun to raise our little fur babies, I think. And yeah, it is a little rainy in Denver today. We are having intermittent showers, apparently. So we're going to have a little bit of rain this afternoon. That's the weather report. And apparently tomorrow it's going to be quite rainy. So that's going to be not fun, but I'll be indoors for most of the day anyway, because that's what I get to do. All right. So be sure to put your questions in the question box for anything you have for me at all to ask me about. Specifically, of course, I love talking about answering questions about the things I know most about, which is cults, coercion, authoritarian groups, and of course, cult recovery. In fact, could you hand me that thing right there? Thank you very much. This little guy is out there for your purchase. It's got the not for resale band because this is my proof copy. But for those of you who don't know, I do have this book called What Now? A Practical Guide to Life After a Cult. It says 4 on this one because we fixed it afterwards. But it's a practical guide, and it is 20 chapters of chock-a-block information for you, for friends and family and survivors of cult coercive situations. It doesn't have to be just Scientology. That is not what this book was written for. It was written for all of you. And so far, the feedback and reviews that I've gotten, there's been a couple reviews posted on Amazon that are pretty positive. If you've seen or read the book or are reading it, I would encourage you to go to Amazon and post some reviews. It all helps in getting it pushed, sort of thing. It's all algorithmic. And I know I'm, asking you to help me in that system, right? I would prefer it not be that way, but it is. So, oh, that's interesting. The question box is on the bottom of the chat area, not at the top. I have no control over where it goes. So if YouTube changed it to put it at the bottom now, that is very interesting to me. But I do see some questions coming in on the Q&A section. So please do put those questions under there, and we will get to them on the screen. So anyway, so as far as the book goes, that is now out there, and I am now. I wanted to say one thing real fast because it just fills me with such it just gives me so many feels that there's kind of this book represents something for me that maybe is an unwarranted thing to say, but I'm a writer and I get to say it because from my position as a writer, which is it feels like the second book is where that title is really earned. Everybody wants to, not everybody, but a lot of people want to write a book, and it takes a great deal of discipline and time to sit down and do it, no matter who you are and what you're writing about. This is acknowledged. This is well acknowledged by me. But I think if you want to have the moniker writer, right, the person who actually, this is what I do, then you got to do it twice. And it took me 10 years to get around to the second one because that's the amount of time it took to actually learn all this crap and put it together and integrate it and talk about it and interview so many people. And one thing that I didn't really highlight, I think, enough is what a team product this book is. I'm the one who wrote it, but it was based on, countless interviews from Christian Zirko to John Atack to Rachel Bernstein to Natalie Feinblatt to so many people whose names I'm forgetting right now who were ex-cult survivors who had stories to tell, neuroscientists who gave me the time of day and talked to me about memory and about how the brain processes things and thinking and feeling and what are these things, at a sort of a neural level. Not just in the brain, but throughout the entire body, considering the body as a holistic instrument, right? It's not just like the brain that's doing the thinking, it's the entire operation. And the social aspects, the sociology of it, the interviews I've done with sociologists, all of that is in here. is made its way into this thing. It's not just my ramblings and opinions about some of this stuff, even though at the end of the day, these are my words and my ideas. From all of these people and putting it together there. So I hope that that the book comes across that way, and I hope that it, that it is useful that way. That it's not just Chris Shelton's ideas about this, but it's a collection of a lot of people's ideas that I thought made so much sense and put me on a path of sensible recovery, right? Of how to do this in stages and steps, and not overwhelm yourself, and not ignore the process, but not overwhelm yourself in the process as well. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to say about the book. I am sure that I'm not going to make a statement or monologue on the TikTok stuff, because I'm sure it's going to come up in the Q&A today, so we'll address it that way. But I am keen to hear your thoughts and opinions about this TikTok craze, fad, whatever that's happening right now. I know everybody from the, any serious person who's weighed in on this from the Scientology space or from any sort of professional quarter has definitely made it clear that it's probably not a good idea, and I'm not going to shock anybody by saying the same thing, but I'm curious about y'all's take on it too, because I'm not going to just be bad, wag my finger, stop doing it. I'm really trying to stop wagging this thing at people, because it's just not helpful or useful to do that. I'm curious what people. What the arguments might be as to why it's a good idea. I'm a little curious about what people think about that. So anyway, we'll see what comes up today. And then the other thing I wanted to let everybody know at the top of the show is I have ordered physical copies of this. They're on their way to me, but they won't get here till the first week of May. So I will have signed copies available for sale to you all. If you want a signed copy of my book, I am more than happy to put a little inscription, put your name in there, sign it for you, and go down to the post office and send it to you. I'm happy to do that. So if you want that, then we can arrange for that to happen. You just have to email me. And again, you can always reach me if you have questions, comments, anything at all you want to send my way. You can always email me at askchrisshelton@gmail.com. And so if you have a book request, if you have opinions you want to share, if you have questions you want to ask me, just throw it to me at that email address, and it will definitely make it to me. All right. I think that's everything I wanted to kind of monologue about, not a lot of stuff. So let's go ahead and get to the comments that are coming in, and let's see what kind of Q&A we have today. Again, throw anything at all my way, and I'll be happy to pick it up. So starting with Katie Olson, Katie Dotson, my bad. Maybe old news, Gavin Newsom appointed a Scientology lawyer to the LA Supreme Court in July 2025. That's right, he did. What a disappointment. And let me share in that disappointment. I saw that in Tony Ortega's reporting. This was one of the attorneys that used to work for Scientology, take a lot of their money. And of course, just as commentary on this, I suppose, right? Just to give this an even look. It's a moral fact that lawyers have to take on clients that they have moral objections to. Because otherwise, there are some people who would never have any legal representation of any kind. And the basis of our system is an adversarial, system where, both sides should have good arguments presented in the legal form for guilt or innocence, because we assume innocent until proven guilty. This is by the way, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but this is not a universal value in the world. And there are places you can end up in jail where they're going to assume your ass is guilty until you prove you're innocent. And that's not a system you want to live under. So we have this adversarial system, and we have people who have to be mouthpieces for truly awful people. And common sense tells you right away this is a truly awful person, but yet they still have a right to legal representation. But when it comes to taking money from the Church of Scientology, we're talking about a little bit of a different situation. Scientology is not a poor defendant, who needs public defender representation or something, which is kind of more of the context I was talking about. Here we're talking about lawyers who knowingly take money, who don't have to take money from a group that is not just has a reputation of being a bad, harmful, destructive group, but when you become a lawyer for the Church of Scientology, you become an enabler of that damage and destruction that they do. You're helping them, and you're taking money to do so. And I don't know that there is any moral high ground even accessible to such a person. I just don't think, because there are choices being made there, and it's not a matter of indigence or, injustice will happen if you don't take their money. That's not the situation with lawyers who represent destructive cults like Scientology or the Moonies or the Mormon Church or as many of these other groups who have very, very, very controversial, questionable, and sometimes very obviously destructive agendas. So that's where I kind of go, yes, there's the whole argument to be made about the legal system and the pillars of trust and sort of moral blindness that we have to bring as lawyers or representatives to this system in order to keep the system operational and working. Yes, I do understand those arguments. Having just made them, or at least tried to at least acknowledge them, I'm now saying that ain't applicable to lawyers who lawyer for Scientology. You don't get a pass for enabling a destructive cult. There is no context in which that's okay. On a moral level, you are a horrible human being for taking Scientology's money. There just isn't any other way to answer that. There's no other answer to that equation as far as I'm concerned. So appointing somebody who has taken Scientology's money to a position like the Supreme Court of a county or state, not a good look, Gavin Newsom. Not a good look at all. And if we're really being honest, my opinion is that Gavin Newsom is a part of the problem of what's been wrong with the Democratic Party and that side of politics for a very, very, very long time, which I've put under the label that I've gotten from Vlad Vexler and his political analysis of left-right, politics. You have what are called, sort of technocratic centrists who are very, very heavy on the idea that technology is going to somehow solve our problems, and that centrist-facing political agendas is the way to go, right? That's been as much a part of the problem, I think, as extreme left and extreme right-wing stuff, right? And unfortunately, right now, the center is kind of giving out and disappearing, right? Because people are going so extreme because of the technocratic centrism that has been basically, in a nutshell, seeking to so desperately to hold the status quo that they won't do anything just or right to stop that anyway, and it just kind of perpetuates itself. So that's my problem with Gavin Newsom. He's a very charismatic and likable guy, but I don't think he's been any better for California than any other person particularly. All right, so that's my hot take on that. Let's see what's coming in here on the chat, by the way. Oh, sure. I'm more than happy to work out deals on the signed books, by the way, as far as seeing some of the comments here. Okay. Yeah, the deal, William Hobbs Foreman, apparently is the guy's name. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Kate. Okay, so let's move on. Now, Margaret asks, what's the square root of 53? I don't know. Come here for the smart answers, including the I don't knows. I'll be honest and tell you when I don't know something. All right, XJW, LA will consider prosecuting as a hate crime young people who run inside orgs. What do you think about this? I think that that is a silly thing to do. I don't enjoy the concept of hate crime. I think it's redundant and silly because it brings a level of subjective judgment to criminality or the criminal process, right? The prosecution process that is probably unwarranted, unnecessary, right? If you burn a building down, why you did it is of secondary importance to me to the fact that you did it. And so, you know, if you did it because you hated the people inside, I don't think that changes the fact that you did what you did, and we don't have to necessarily tack that on. But that's my hot take, personal opinion about hate crimes. I think it's a redundant concept. That being said, these kids running around inside orgs is clearly not something they're doing out of hate. It's it's adding another layer of silliness to this. It's bad enough that they're doing what they're doing, which is trespassing. That's a crime. And I don't know any other crimes that might fit on the billet of what you're going to bring against kids who are running around inside orgs not wanted there beyond trespassing. There could be other crimes they're committing too. I'm not the legal, but it's a silly thing to prosecute it as a hate crime. And of course, that's why Scientology is going to push as hard as they possibly can to make that happen. They want to be left alone, and they want to be left out of the public eye. They don't appreciate any exposure. So to that degree, what these people are doing, these kids are doing, and I'll just keep saying kids, even if there are adults who are doing it too, it's a very childish activity. So we'll just say kids. And it doesn't have to be a hate crime to be wrong. But Scientology hates it. And so because Scientology hates it, therefore it's a good thing. That's not good thinking. That's not the way to think about the world or how to do things in it, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that prosecuting it as a hate crime is only going to feed Scientology's narrative. And Scientology's narrative is that we are the persecuted religious minority in this country who are being unfairly prosecuted or persecuted, rather, in the court of public opinion by all these kids who are, religious haters and bigots. And, Chris Shelton's a religious hater and bigot, and Leah Remini is a religious hater and bigot, because anybody who has anything critical to say about Scientology is a religious hater and bigot. So these kids are really just giving Scientology all the ammunition they need to prove that case. By trying to expose Scientology, they are actually enabling and helping Scientology. And whether they see that or not is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether they agree or not with, or whether the entire protesting activism world agrees with what I'm saying or not. It's a fact. Scientology is taking these actions and characterizing them a particular way. And in this climate, at this time, religious criticism is easily equated to religious hate. So this has been years in the making, both in Scientology world and outside of Scientology world, in the Christian evangelical world, and in the Jewish world, and in the Islamic world. All of these groups have been the target of unreasonable and reasonable criticism. But they have all responded to the reasonable criticism by putting it into the unreasonable bag and saying it's all hate. And in a post-truth media environment like we have right now, where truth is what anybody says it is, it's easy to merge those two things and lose the nuance. You lose all that spectrum nuance. And so all criticism becomes hate. That's what these kids are enabling right now. because what they're doing is not effective protesting or activism in any real way. It doesn't deliver a message. They're not running through these orgs with signs saying anything. I've watched tons of these videos. They're just running bodily into the org, laughing gleefully while they do it, trying to get as far into the building as they can and create as much disruption as they can in the process. And this is chalked up morally as a really good thing to do, because anything that you do against Scientology is good, right? Because they're a bad, evil organization, right? And it's just kind of not how this really ends up working in the long term, because police forces and prosecutors love a target. And when you provide them all the evidence they need in your own video of you committing a crime, you hand them their case. They love that, because their job is to get cases closed and get a successful prosecution rate. That's all prosecutors care about. They're not on some moral crusade. They have a job to do, and their job depends on statistics of numbers of cases successfully prosecuted. So if you make their job 10 times easier, they're going to take advantage of that, and they are going to prosecute you, right? And it has nothing to do with them being on Scientology's side or not. You commit a crime, you have all the evidence that you've created of the crime you've committed. Guess what? They're going to prosecute you. And that's what's happening. And Scientology will urge and egg on and use all that PR area control they've been building for years, right, to try to get the prosecutors to go max hate crime level prosecution, right? It's only in Scientologists' best interest to do that. So, of course, they're going to do it. And they're going to hire lawyers or hire, what's the word I would use here? I don't know if there's a concept of a lobbyist when it comes to prosecutors, but that's the only word that comes to mind right now, right? Is somebody who can, urge the prosecutors to do whatever it is they're going to do, right? So, and of course, that Scientology is going out of their way to provide every single bit of evidence they can, because they have their own camera systems and their own security guards and their own ability to every single staff member who observes these kids running through these orgs can fill out a statement, give it to the police, right? And then you got a ream of statements against you, and you're going to go, but Anya, I was just pranking them. Way too late by that point. And the rest of your life now has, criminality on its record, right? Has that connected to you. And that's going to matter years from now. But, most of these kids who are doing this stuff aren't thinking in those terms, and so they don't really think about it that way. All I can do is say whatever everybody else is saying out there, Leah, Tony, everybody who's kind of serious about this has been pretty clear about the fact that this is a really bad idea, because of the fact that Scientology is going to take advantage of it like that. And I think enough said. So let's go ahead and move on. I did want to say, though, like I mentioned at the top, if there are arguments for this, if you're listening to this and going, Chris Shelton, what a fucking jerk, right? He just doesn't get it. He's just trying to, throw water on our fun. And I've seen stuff on Reddit like that, right? I get it. So if you can help me understand if there's something else going on here, or some other agenda being, or some other goal being gone after that I'm not seeing, I'm wide open to hearing your good arguments for why these raids are a really great idea. I would really love to hear. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I would really love to hear what those arguments are, because I'm honestly curious. Maybe there's something really big that I'm missing on this, that if I knew it, it would all turn on a dime, and I could fully support this activity. But right now I can't see that. So so you all let me know. Thanks, Nova, thank you for that. In the chat there, I got a comment here. How people justify these trespassing events is the same as the ends justify means mentality of the church, in my opinion. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough on that. Also, the guards carry tasers and handcuffs. Yeah, that's apparently happening now too, is the Scientology security guards or private security will actually tackle you, tase you, handcuff you, and they're not going to necessarily be as aware of your human and civil rights as the police are. And the police are already on the edge in recognizing your human and civil rights too. So you can get seriously roughed up in the process of doing this if Scientology gets their hands on you. And that's not a fate I would want. Let me put it this way. Knowing everything I know about Scientology, there is 0.0% chance that I would ever put myself in a position of being handcuffed inside a Church of Scientology. I can think of, I would almost rather be in jail in Mexico than end up handcuffed inside a Church of Scientology. So you might want to think about just that far into the future. If you can't think about consequences like court hearings and lawyer fees and lawsuits and Scientology fair gaming you because now they know who you are and they know who your family is and they know who all your connections are. If you can't think that far ahead, because Scientology does think that far ahead, right? Let me just warn you on the pure handcuffs level. It's uncomfortable, abusive, and you could actually get really, really hurt by those people. You got to know that going into this. This is not a group of people who are playing patty cake. The Church of Scientology is a very dangerous group, right? And so you really do take a lot by poking that bear. Okay, enough said. All right. Yeah, X-Cyan asked about the box. Yeah, no, that is not an intended change. YouTube just likes to game up the user interface, the UI, constantly. They're constantly tweaking stuff. So every week to me is a new run. It's a new experience in live streaming. Right now, we're just doing the Q&A as we always do through OBS, and everything is working fine. But they mess with stuff constantly tinkering. And frankly, I think it's because they just don't have anything better to do. It's not because we want it. Nobody's asking for these changes. They just keep throwing them our way. Okay. Oh, no name in NW. I'd love to hear about feedback you've gotten from the book buyers and any future plans for your recent book release audiobook. Great. Let me tell you. So here's the exact plan so now that this is out there in the wild and y'all can get it on Amazon, or if you hate Amazon, and I understand if you do, you can order it through Ingram Spark as well. Okay, so you don't have to stick to Amazon. But right now it's available as an ebook on Amazon and Ingram Spark, and it's available as a print-on-demand book through Amazon and Ingram Spark. Link is below to the, I have a web page that Illuminate has done for me that lays out the book and the features of it and whatnot. And so very, very happy about that. And you can get the book that way. I am recording here the audiobook. And so what's going to happen is right now it's April 26th. I don't have an exact date set yet, but we have May and then June. Sometime in June, the audiobook is coming out. You will know more as I get that settled and get through recording the rest of the book and have it put together. I'm taking my time with that, to be honest with you, but I want it to be a real quality work, and I'm my own worst critic when it comes to listening to my own voice, so that's why. So that's going to take about 2 months. Now, following that, we're going to be doing this workshop, and we're thinking June, July. We don't have, I don't know if Anne has the exact date set yet, but what we're going to do is a weekly workshop where you can connect. This is a paid thing, and I think it's like 325 or something like that, which sounds like a lot until you realize you're getting 20 episodes, 20 interviews or meetings with me, where we're going to go through every chapter of the book in some detail. And I'm really keen to hear what your feedback and questions are from the material. I never have pretended, and I said in the book itself, this is not an exhaustive coverage of any of these subjects. I'm covering things in this book like, read my table of contents here, coercive control. There's a whole chapter on it, right? There's a chapter on generational experience of first gen versus second gen. There's a chapter on trauma. But to expect that this is going to cover everything there is to know about trauma in one chapter, forget it, right? It's just here's what I want you to know from the very get-go, coming out of the gate. This is what I want you to know. And if you've been out for 5 years, 10 years, maybe you never learned this about trauma, here, please know this, right? And this is kind of an intro to it. So I know people are going to have questions, and I'm very, very curious what those questions are going to be. And of course, at the end of the book, there is a list of suggested readings where you can go and learn what I learned, right? Those are all the books I read and all the stuff I covered. I tried to it's not exhaustive. There's a lot more that I've covered over the last 10 years. But I thought those were the most important works to redirect people to from there. So that workshop is going to it's going to go for months, right? Because we're going to be doing 20 weeks of it. And following that and getting all that feedback from it, and I really, really, really hope we get a lot of people at those workshops, because it's going to be an ongoing enrollment. If you miss the first week, it'll be recorded. You can watch that. You'll have access to it if you sign up. But so you can come in on week 2, 3, 4, 5. It's okay. But we're going to go through the whole thing. That whole set of recordings will be available on my Patreon page. It'll be behind a little bit of a paywall, but if you sign up on Patreon, you'll get access to that. And then with all that feedback and stuff I'm getting, my plan right now is to then take all of that and put an online course together, so that there's a cult recovery course on here's some stuff I really want you to know. And it'll obviously repeat everything that's in the book, plus what we've learned from the workshops and feedback from you guys. So please be generous with your feedback, not in terms of if you liked it or didn't like it, but what reaches you, what doesn't, what makes sense to you, what doesn't, what could use some more clarification, what was confusing to you. I really want to know. I hope none of it's confusing. I hope it all communicates clearly. I tried really hard to do that, but this is my first go at something like this. So you all have to let me know. Okay, so that's what we have planned for basically the year, is what I'm kind of trying to think with. And I've always sort of misestimated the time it takes for me to get stuff done by about a year or two, right? But I really do have a plan here. And because I'm working with other people who are really, really helping me organize stuff and do things behind the scenes that I don't know how to do, like put web pages together, this is a team effort now, and I'm very, very happy about that. I will say another thing that is kind of an unspoken benefit of having a partner or having a team is somebody to bounce stuff off of. You don't appreciate that enough as when you're the lone sole creator and you don't have that, right? Or you have people to bounce things off of, but it's your friends, right? Or your family, and they're like, I don't have time for this, or I don't know about that, or I don't, whatever. When you have a partner or a team, then it's more, it makes a lot more sense to bounce those things back and forth and come up with better ideas as a result. So that's kind of the general game plan for the year. Now, I've also got, just to tell you guys, right, as far as where I'm going or what's happening, I've also got another book kind of outlined for my third book right now, which is going to take this chapter on the reason, emotion, and morality stuff and the REM model, and I'm going to develop that a lot more. and I'm going to put a whole book together. And it's not going to be a book as big as this. It's going to be significantly shorter. But it will, I'm thinking probably around 100, 150 pages. And it's so about half that. And I want to break down this REM model and how to use it, and how to use it individually, or how we might be able to use it in therapeutic contexts, or how we might be able to use it in business relations, how we might be able to use it in interpersonal relations, family level. There's a lot of applicability it has. And I really want to share that with the world, because it's the one thing that comes out of this that is 100% mine. I came up with that. And I want to share that with the world, and make it clear how useful it might be, right? And the thing I think I've come up with that makes it communicate best right now is the BITE model we all are familiar with from Dr. Stephen Hassan, lays out how a cult works, and the REM model is kind of how the cult member works, right? The individual. And it applies, the information from the REM model applies to a lot more than just a cult situation. So that's future thinking that I'm doing, that I'm keen to get to, because I love that model and I love what we could do with it. So that's what's happening. Let me check in here. Well, thank you. Yes. Yeah, I thought it might be good to finally use this screen for something useful back here. Oh, she did. Amy Scobie went through my book on YouTube chapter by chapter. That's cool. I didn't know that. Awesome. I'll have to see what she had to say. Yeah, and I know. And Sarah and Nippy have a book coming out too. That's right. This is really the time for books right now. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that REM model book is absolutely happening. I'm trying, I've just given you guys like the next 2 years of my life right now, right, as far as where things are going. Maybe the next 3 years, the way I time things out. This channel will obviously continue. This show will continue. My podcast will continue. My work with Tony every week will continue. None of that's going anywhere. But I do want you all to know that in the back of my mind, as I've said many times, YouTube to me is a dying platform. It doesn't maybe necessarily know it yet. Maybe everybody hasn't quite twigged on it yet, but my tea leaves are telling me that that YouTube is just kind of going the way of the dodo as far as what it has been. It's changing. And I'm not saying YouTube is going away, like there won't be any more YouTube. I'm saying it's changing so much before our eyes that I can't or don't rely on it. I'm not sure 5 years from now that I'll still be doing this. I'm not sure. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We'll have to see what happens. What I am sure of is that I will continue to be a writer 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because that's what I really am. And it's really settled for me now. And I can't tell you how happy that makes me, because it's kind of life goals. From when I was a child, I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to put books out there. And I didn't know that I was going to be doing nonfiction books when I was a kid, but I'm okay with that. It's writing, and to me, writing is writing, and so that's what I'm all about now. Okay, and kind of always have been, really, if I'm being honest. YouTube was a way to get the writing into a medium that people would more easily assimilate or accept. But I always wanted to do writing, so. Yeah, hey, Winged Infinity, go ahead and make sure that question goes into the question box for me so I can throw it up on the screen. I see your questions in the comments, but I cannot throw them up on the screen unless you put them in the question box for the Q&A. So go ahead and throw them in there. All right, let us carry on. Joe DeCeppo, can I buy your book from somewhere other than Amazon? Yes, I'm boycotting Bezos and Amazon. Maybe even direct from you so they don't take a cut. You can, Joe. I'm more than happy once I get some stock here to just send you a book. I'm mainly doing that for signed copies, but we don't have to do it that way. You just let me know. And Ingram Spark is the other place that you can go to purchase books if you do not want to purchase them from Amazon. And again, I totally understand. I will get a royalty either way, but the way that you will give me the most amount of bang for my buck, or your buck rather, is to buy it from me directly. But I do want to make it clear that I'm not trying to be my own fulfillment service. That's why I have Amazon and Ingram Spark. But if you want that signed copy, that would be the way to go about it. And basically, just to be full disclosure, I'm gonna charge like $50 for a signed copy because I have to go take it down and mail it to you and stuff too. So it'll be basically $50 for the signed copy with plus postage, because whatever postage is going to be to send it to you is kind of how I'm going to work that. So I think it's a deal, but you guys let me know. Okay. So OBG Foster asks, let me 1 second here. All right. Now that Paramount's merger is complete, do you think Star Trek can be revived? No. We'll see. We'll see. Anything's possible, of course. If they bring a new creative team in and literally trash Alex Kurtzman and anything and everything that man has had to do with Star Trek, I might possibly start having some hope again. But you know how cynical I am about the whole IP franchise thing these days. What I am concerned about with the overall mergers of our world is the stifling of competition and therefore creativity. The unintended consequence, I don't think people form monopolies for this purpose or do corporate mergers for this purpose, but so therefore an unintended downstream consequence of this is when you put all of any effort under one roof, you monopolize a thing, you remove the concept of competition. There's no need for the product to be any good because it's the only product there is, and it's the only one you can get, whether it's a widget or a TV show or a computer or a phone or a bag of flour. You only get that one thing because it's all coming out of one house, one corporation, one institution, which is going to, because of the nature of social dynamics, is going to have one fixed view of what is and isn't defined by this group. So Paramount will have Paramount products, and that's all you're going to get. When other people have access to these things, and it's not a monopoly, then you have competition, and that's where quality comes from. Right? There is no need when you are the sole supplier of a thing to care about quality because you're the only guy in town, right? So if you're the only supplier of eggs and all the eggs you have are half rotten, people still have to pay you if they want an egg. And they can complain about the fact that it's half rotten, but if they want an egg, that's what they get, right? But if Joe opens up an egg farm on the other side of town and he doesn't have the rotten eggs, you'll flock over there because you now have a choice. It's no different with movies and entertainment and all of that too, or books or media, right? This is why we don't want monopolies, and this is why corporate mergers have been ruining our creative and fun lives, is because they monopolize it. This is the problem with our sort of race to the unity, you could say, of Amazon or Walmart or these megacorps trying to be everything to everybody, rather than we had it better. We, the consumers, had it better when there was a lot of suppliers of products, when lots of people were competing for our business. That's when we have it best. So when there's lots of movie houses and production studios producing independently, not fake independently, A24 is owned, right? They're not really independent anymore. I'm talking about really separate, funded by different sources, coming from completely different places, different philosophical bents, different, viewpoints of the world. That's when we all have it best. And that's what we should kind of appreciate about variety and about the non-corporate experience of anything from food to entertainment. So that's my more basic problem with the Paramount merger is all of our entertainment, all of our news media, all of what we are delivered is going to be significantly worse just because of the way it's produced, not because of the people involved. Then I bring up, some jerk like Alex Kurtzman and I can make individual criticisms of individual creators. But the problem I'm hoping I'm, making the point here is that it doesn't matter who's in charge. If that's the only thing you get, it's going to suck after a while, and that's just kind of the reality of that. All right. Okay, again, Cole, make sure you get those questions into the question box so I can throw them up on the screen and answer them. Thank you. All right, XJW. Chris, after escaping Scientology, did you seek counseling or therapy? Will what you went through... for what I went through in Scientology. Yes, I did. Yes, absolutely. I've had a few different therapists. I'll go ahead and share a little bit with you guys here because I have a whole chapter in here about therapy for a reason. Because I had to learn a few things and I wanted to pass on to you guys, right? It's a little bit of a roulette wheel. It's a little bit of you have to kind of find your person or people. Maybe it's more than one. We've had... for example, over the years, I've had individual therapy, I've had individual psychiatry, and I have had marriage counseling. And these are different things, each one, pretty different. And you got to learn the differences and the similarities. And then it's a matter of finding your fit. And it could be different over time. You could really connect with one therapist and get through some stuff, and then you're kind of done with that. You need somebody different because maybe you're looking for a different treatment modality, or maybe you're looking for a different approach or a different kind of philosophy behind how you're approaching what you're doing, right? Or you're just going to tackle some new aspect of it that came up, and this therapist doesn't really know that, but this other one does, right? So it's finding that. And really, even at a more basic level, for me, the struggle has not been about treatment modalities or philosophies. It's been about, can I talk to this person? And do they look like or sound like they care? And do they sound and look like they know what they're talking about? Or are they just sitting there nodding along and agreeing with everything I say, right? Because that's kind of easy to do. But it's not necessarily the most helpful thing to do. I have found, for example, in my own therapy that by far the most advances I've made or the biggest leaps forward I've had have been from simply having a therapist listen to what I had to say or working with me and then shooting a question at me out of left field that I didn't see coming, which opened up a whole nother can of worms or a whole other thing that I didn't think about or wasn't looking at. And for me and the way I do stuff, that is gold. And when somebody can point me in a direction I'm not already thinking about, or I hadn't considered, or a viewpoint shift about, I thought this was the right thing to do, but actually it's an incredibly rude thing to do, and please stop doing that, right? And you go, it is? I didn't even think about it that way, right? Like just having these little things, seemingly little things, either asked about or pointed out sometimes, not in some kind of, you really shouldn't be doing that, Chris, but more of a, have you ever thought about what effect you're creating when you do this thing? Right? And it's like, oh no, I never did think about that. I love those moments. I love them because they are the kind of, if there's the closet full of junk, I'm not shy about opening the door and opening some boxes and hauling them out and let's look at the junk, right? That's what I've been doing. But sometimes you need somebody standing over your shoulder with a flashlight going, what the hell is that in that corner over there that you're not looking at, right? That's been, so again, that's the analogy that I think works a lot for me, that has helped me a lot in my own work. And not letting the treatment or the modalities or the methods get in the way. Scientology, that was kind of a Scientology habit for me, to be honest with you, was thinking that the process was more important than the people. That somehow a procedure was going to fix me or produce a result in me. And until I had that awe moment or that ha-ha moment or something like that, somehow it wasn't working. It was a huge, huge deal to realize that ending a therapy session in tears and really being like, bruh, isn't necessarily a bad thing. It took me a long time to get my head around that one as a former Scientologist, because the habit in Scientology is if you're not, at the end, something really went south and somebody really fucked up. And that's not true at all. Sometimes ending up in tears is exactly where you need to be, because you gotta hit that wall in order to start thinking and looking and processing some of those emotions that have become solidified, inside you. And you gotta tear those things down. But the process of doing that is sometimes going to be a months long process. It's not an FNVGIs and I'm going to go write a success story now. It just doesn't work like that at all. So even adjusting to that was its own kind of process. But now I'm personally, I'm not a therapist. I've never pretended to be. Y'all know that. I know something about treatment modalities, and I know enough to know there is no treatment method that's ever going to make up for a failure to connect with another human being. Right? That's where treatment begins. And if that connection isn't happening, I don't think treatment's happening. That's my own hot take, right? Again, not a therapist, so I'm not pretending to lay judgment on other people. I'm just telling you my own opinion and my own experience with this stuff. Okay, so that's what I'll say about that. But yeah, definitely have had some therapy. All right. Dandy Warhol, what movies are you going to watch this summer? Oh, good question. Winged Infinity, I do not think you are wrong. And there are a lot of reasons for that, what you commented on there. Let me pop over here because I'm curious. I want to make sure. I have not been, for I think reasons I've already kind of laid out here as far as my disappointment with the entertainment industry. I've not been as hotly looking forward to stuff as what's coming out. Let's go through this article here where it's got movies coming out from the summer that people are looking forward to. I am not looking forward to The Devil Wears Prada 2. Not at all my thing. I have to say I'm curious, but not super curious about the June 5th Masters of the Universe. He-Man kind of was not my thing growing up, and it was never really a toy I connected with, so that's not a toy universe that I'm connected into or plugged into. I know a lot of people are. The trailer for Masters of the Universe looks interesting to me as an action movie. We'll see what they do with it. Here is a movie I am looking forward to. Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day with Emily Blunt. This is some kind of alien thing, connection into our society, alien invasion story. That's all I know about it, and I'm happy that that's all I know about it. I am absolutely intending to remain spoiler-free on that movie until it comes out, which is June 12th, so not too much longer to wait. A lot of people in it, but I'm looking forward to that one. Toy Story 5, not on my radar. Moana live action, absolutely not on my radar. The Odyssey, July 17th, very, very much on my radar. This is Christopher Nolan's new movie with Matt Damon playing Odysseus and his 10-year journey home. Just the word of this movie got me going on studying some Greek tragedy and stories and understanding the Greek culture of the time of the Bronze Age and Iron Age, and where these stories came from, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the whole, let's go invade Troy thing and all of that. It was such fascinating learning, and set me on a course of learning so much more. So that alone, I'm curious to see how Nolan's going to interpret this story. And I've been watching with amusement as people are like online going, they got the costumes wrong, they got this wrong, they got that wrong. All these haters right from the get-go. And when you understand what the Iliad and the Odyssey actually are, then you understand there's no such thing as getting the costumes right, because it's a blending of mythology and reality from Bronze Age and it's Iron Age thinkers taking Bronze Age stories and updating them and telling them in an Iron Age context. So you have all this back and forth with historical artifacts and stuff that is going to give you a very, very mixed bag. It's not a story to be taken literally or as though it's literal truth or ever happened. That was never why the Odyssey and the Iliad were put together in the first place. And I didn't know shit about any of this stuff, right? Until I started looking it all up. And I'm not any kind of Greek expert now. I just know a little tiny bit about it. But it's so interesting that I can't wait to see what Nolan does with this. So that's coming, and I'm looking forward to that. Spider-Man Brand New Day. We'll see. We'll see. Couple other movies I've not heard of. So that's what's happening. Okay, now Project Hail Mary is out right now. I have not seen it yet, and that is to my sadness. I definitely do want to go out to a movie theater and see that movie. So I'm going to have to arrange for that soon. I've heard that Project Hail Mary is absolutely incredible. I'm sure that's true. There are very few people I enjoy watching on the screen more than Ryan Gosling. The man is incredibly charismatic, very good actor, probably one of the best SNL hosts, Saturday Night Live hosts that's ever out there. My top 5 list of SNL hosts has Ryan Gosling and Adam Driver near the top of the list, because those two are two of the funniest people I have ever seen on that show. Anyway, I think that I can't wait to see Project Hail Mary. I've heard it's very, very, very good. The movie that I am most looking forward to right now, the only one that's really on my radar that I'm tracking, that I'm like really waiting for, is not coming this year. It's going to be next year. And that is the Highlander remake or reboot or reimagining or whatever it is that Henry Cavill is doing with Highlander. I am hardcore original Highlander fan. That movie came out when I was in high school. I had the movie poster on my wall. I was all about Connor McLeod. I was all about the mythology, and I hated what they did with it afterwards. The sequels absolutely sucked. The TV show was just not my thing. But apparently this new movie is going to incorporate some of the mythology they created in the Highlander universe, so to speak, into this new version of it. And I love Henry Cavill, and I know the dude is super geek and super into the source material, and he doesn't want to screw stuff up. And I just love that guy for this. So I'm very, very, very much looking forward to that. That's the cinematic joy I have in my future. But we'll have to see where things go. Okay, good. So that was that. Let's see what your next questions are here. X-Cyan asks, Jimmy Kimmel said the Trumpful arch, the Arc de Trump, proposed by Trump as the perfect cross between Scientology and Liberace. Wow, Jimmy Kimmel said that? A blend of flashy gold guy luxury and authoritarian self-worship. Your thoughts? What a great question. Collecting my thoughts right now. I'm not wondering what to say. I'm thinking about how to say this. This will allow me to talk about something that I've never talked about here before. It's a new train of thought. Again, picking up on what other people are putting down. This is not original thinking to me totally, but my version of this, which is one of the analysis points from Vlad Vexler, who's a political philosopher and analyst on YouTube, is that Trump represents, or the Trump MAGA movement represents, a return to, or a kind of version of monarchy thinking, right? Like what is it to be an aristocrat, a monarch, a person who approaches government from that perspective? And it goes beyond just dictator. It's a way of thinking about systems where the entire system exists to service you. And that's what a monarch, right? Monarch is. And that kind of thinking is very Putinesque. It's very, Viktor Orban, right? I just got voted out. This dictatorial sort of monarchical thinking, right, is very much about, I said it, and this entire system exists to make what I want to have happen. So if it's not happening, the world is not right. Something's wrong with the entire world that my will is not being projected and manifested. It's a way of thinking we haven't seen as Americans ever, and that the world hasn't seen at this scale in a very, very, very long time. So we're not used to it, and it's reeling us. It's throwing us for a loop, right? We're like, what is this? But you go into history, you see lots and lots of people who used to think this way, because this is how people used to organize, just in a lot smaller numbers. The scale is what's really very, very different now, because we're a global community. Even if we're not in unity anymore, we still have global networks of communication, and we're hyper aware of, the smallest things happening on the other side of the planet. It wasn't always that way. So this attitude is an attitude of self-glorification at a level that very few people are used to, or can even think with. And so America has not been a country that has glorified its leaders with monuments. They're rare. We have a few of them. We don't have hundreds of thousands of them, right? There's not tons of them, and they're not to all of our leaders. There's a Lincoln Memorial, one, right? There's a Washington Monument, there's one, right? But monarchs in history love to use the resources of their country on projects that glorify them. Personally, you can call it an ego trip. It serves a social function, not particularly a great one, not particularly a great social function compared to the social functions that democratic institutions serve, which don't, create monuments in the glory of, our divine leader. That's North Korean thinking, right? That's Chinese kind of thinking in a way. And that's where we're going. So that's, to me, what I see in this Arc de Trump, right, is this return to a kind of thinking and attitude on the part of our leadership that is archaic in a modern age and yet being resuscitated. And that's what I wanted to throw out in answer to this today, is It's ridiculous. Yes, you have all the things that Jimmy Kimmel or anybody else will comment on as an immediate gut reaction. This is wrong. This is gross. This is silly. This is a waste of resources. This is a waste of money and time, like his ballroom, right? What are we doing with this, right? What is this? Well, I'm telling you what it is, right? It's this kind of very different attitude from leadership that you and me and everything in this country doesn't exist for our independent liberty and pursuit of happiness. We exist for their happiness. And that's a shift none of us want, but it's happening. And I don't like it at all. Do not want. Please, please don't do this. So this is why we got to fight harder for our democratic institutions and start thinking in terms of, I'll just say it. I know it's preachy as fuck, and I'm not going to sit here and wag my finger at you guys, but every single time, whether you're on the left or the right, at this point, right, every single time we are egging on the division and the opposition and the divided world that we're in, we're helping bring that future reality about of monarchistic, authoritarian thinking. And that's how it happens, is we divide so hard that we can't trust each other anymore. We can't look at each other anymore. We don't want to know each other's names. We don't want to know our neighbors. Apparently, a statistic I read, just to demonstrate the point, 20, 30 years ago, surveys, Gallup poll surveys of Americans, how much do you trust your neighbors or know your neighbors or have connection with your neighbors? 60% of Americans were like, yep, my neighbors, cool people, know my neighbors, like my neighbors, know them by name, that kind of thing. Now it's down to 30%. Just as one metric of what I'm talking about, right? The social cohesion, the bonds between us stripping apart is enabling people like Trump to do what they're doing. So the antidote obviously being, let's reverse that course and stop finding excuses to hate each other. That might be the bottom line message coming from me out of this Arc Day Trump answer. Okay. Chip Buddy, why did USA replace one Ayatollah Khomeini with another Ayatollah Khomeini? Because it was never up to us to do that replacement. We didn't choose that. Trump randomly decided in a fit of reactive thinking that regime change in Iran would be a really, really, really good idea. And Netanyahu has tried to pull this grift on every American president for the last 20 years, and none of them bought it until he convinced Trump to do it. So regime change in Iran was a really, really, really not great idea because we do not control that. And so an old Ayatollah Khomeini was replaced with a younger Ayatollah Khomeini. And there are thousands of these Ayatollahs and religious mullahs, and the system over there is radically different from ours. And if you don't get your head around their system, none of it's going to make any sense. So I'm not going to sit here and I don't even understand it all, and I'm not going to try to, half-ass explain it. I'm just saying that a theocracy, the theocracy of Iran, is a very, very, very different structure from ours. And messing with another government's regime and messing with another government system, right, it's a foolhardy endeavor at best. And this was so ill-advised, so not thought through, so warned against, right? That it is just nothing but chaos and confusion. And we have to imagine that we are exerting any control over what Iran is doing right now would be the problem I would have with this question, right? Is we didn't have anything to do with it. We just bombed the shit out of those people. And they came up with a new leader because we, managed to get their old one. But this is not a matter of, well, if you just killed the right number of people, somehow the whole country will revolt. This is a gross misunderstanding of foreign affairs, regime change, and basically Iran itself as a country. But really how wars get fought, right? You just don't do it the way they're doing it. and expect that, some tweets from Trump are going to get, all the popular resistance to rise up and take out their government. What happens when you start bombing schools is the exact opposite. Everybody unifies, right? Well, kind of like what happened here after 9/11. The day after 9/11, we were all on the same page. All of us as Americans. I was in the Sea Org and I was on the same page as you guys, with an American flag on my lapel, because I never felt like an American more than on 9/12. And it's the same thing going on in Iran right now, right? There's no better way to unify a country than bomb the fuck out of its schools. I mean, what these people, there is no thinking involved in what's happening, and that's the hill that people can't seem to climb. They can't seem to get their head around that our foreign policy is being dictated by somebody's upset stomach. Like, it's that silly. It's that stupid of a situation right now. Okay, Japan at Green Gables. There's only a mission near me. Should I still be concerned? I don't know if I should think of the mission holders as perpetrators of Scientology abuse, as victims, or both. Well, the fully accurate way of thinking about any Scientologist, including David Miscavige, by the way, is that they are victims and victimizers. This was the last chapter of this book, by the way, is a chapter on victims and victimizers. That's what it's called, because I take this point up at some length to address it fully, right? So I'm not going to read the chapter to you, but the point is that there is no one in a cult who is not both a victim and a victimizer. They are enabling the cult just by the fact that they're there. They're enabling it by every penny they give to it, by every hour of work they do for it, by every promotional or, propagate, evangelizing, right? Promoting it. They're enabling it. So you are automatically in the victimizer seat, but you're also a victim of it, because you are being actively lied to from moment number one. From the very first sentence, they're deceiving you. This is part of the package of a destructive cult. If they're not doing that, we're not talking about a destructive cult. We're talking about something else. So this is what the Moonies do. This is what, the Scientologists do. Is they're curving everything. There's no straight facts being given to you without some embellishment or curve to twist your thinking into believing you're looking at something that is better than it is, more beneficial than it is, that its entire nature is different than it is. Scientology is a money-making scam. That is what it is. They'll present it to you as a religion. There's a lot of very convincing arguments for why it's a religion. But it's actually a money-making scam. The nature of the first principles, right? And right away, they're violating that by deceiving you as to what it is. Whether they're a mission holder, whether they're a staff member, a public person. It's just a matter of how much deception is involved. Well, how deep are you into it? And how deeply do you believe it? Those are the two important questions as to how much of an enabler or a victimizer you're going to be. People who go all in on the RTC, L. Ron Hubbard approach to managing people can become physically abusive victimizers. But if you're just bankrupting people and you never beat on them, you're still a victimizer, aren't you? You're still hurting people. And if you're the person on the front lines with the smiley face and the pretty, the pretty face, and you're bringing people in, you're victimizing them. Maybe not as victimizing them to the degree David Miscavige is victimizing them, but you're still doing that, aren't you? Right? So that's how I look at it. That's how I think about it. And everything I just said had no moral component, had no moral judgment to it. I'm not judging people on a moral level for being enablers of a cult. That's what you have to rise above in order to look at the question honestly. Because if you bring this flavor of, and you're evil because of it, that's unnecessary. We don't have to go there, right? To take a good, hard, honest look at this. It's generally not helpful, because what it tends to do when you bring the moral judgments in is it tends to get people defensive, and then they don't want to look at how they enabled the group or what they did to contribute to making things harder for people or worse for people, right? Because they get defensive. It's a totally human reaction. I've done it, you've done it, everybody's done it, right? So that's why we might not want to always necessarily go there in looking at this. Okay, good. I'm just checking out the comments here. Yes. Okay, good. Not a mouse. What's the square root of OT3? What? You guys. I wish, these were the moments where I wish I was a little bit more clever, so I could give you some funny answer, but I don't know. All right, Japan also asks, have you heard about the Church of LDS? Yes, I have, suing John Dehlin. Yeah, the Mormon Church is suing John Dehlin right now. He's the one who runs the Mormon Stories podcast, of which I was on years and years ago, told the whole story of Scientology, the whole story of me. It was a wonderful opportunity, and John Dehlin is an amazing, amazing guy. It almost sounds like fair game the way they are just trying to drain his resources and slander him. You are right. Now, what I have in terms of knowledge on this is I watched John's video where he described what was happening, and basically the basis of the Mormon Church going after John is that he is confusing. Their claim is that he is creating anti-Mormon content, but because he calls it Mormon Stories podcast and uses a logo that looked like the same or very similar to the color scheme and logo of the Mormon Church, their claim was an average person going to John Dehlin's channel would be confused about whether this is an official Mormon publication or broadcast or whether it's some critic of the church, because the logo is confusing, the name is confusing, and therefore, let's make this case. They engaged in mediation with John Dehlin over these issues. He changed his logo, changed the color scheme, did not change the name of the podcast, refused to do so. He said, no, I'm not changing it from Mormon Stories. And therefore, they went ahead with, as I understand it, that was their basis for continuing with the lawsuit. And they do intend on absolutely bankrupting him, a la Scientology. They are absolutely going for that. There's no question about it. And this is the in that they are using to do it. Even though he made some changes, they are saying he's not making enough. It is a specious, really disingenuous argument. It has no basis in any real validity. But the whole thing about a lawsuit is you can say whatever the fuck you want in your claims, and you got to pay to go argue the case in court. The Mormon Church has more money than anyone will ever be able to spend. If all of us collectively tried to spend the money of the Mormon Church, we would abjectly fail for the rest of our lives. There's an unimaginable amount of money that those people are sitting on. You think Scientology has money? They have nothing. They are paupers compared to the Mormon Church. So this is a this is a nuisance for them. This is take a couple lawyers, throw any amount of money they need at them, get rid of John Dehlin. That's what the Mormon Church is doing. And they have the resources to do that. Whereas John, who is a trained psychologist and a wonderful broadcaster and a real voice of sanity and tolerance in that space, he is not the Mormon version of some people in the ex-Scientology world. This is a very level-headed guy. So they chose a target that is going to actually be a pretty sympathetic target for a jury, but you and I both know how long it takes to get in front of a jury. And the Mormon Church does not intend for this case to ever get in front of a jury. They want to bankrupt John long before that. And they're going to throw every single legal tactic they can at him to do that, unless they're stopped from doing so through public exposure and shaming. But we're in a climate now where that has never been harder to do than it is now. Because I've been talking about it for years. This post-truth environment is something that is not helping any of us. And when it comes to exposing abusive groups, they benefit from post-truth way more than you do. There is no benefit for you, really, as an average American citizen, to be living in a post-truth media environment where truth just doesn't really matter. The truth doesn't exist. It's a hard concept to get your head around, but it's a real thing. And so the Mormon Church can utilize that to their advantage to spread any number of falsehoods on any number of channels they want. And there are pro-Mormon podcasts and Mormon apologists who run podcasts who will spread all of that post-truth nonsense about John Dehlin to muddy the waters, flood the zone, as Steve Bannon puts it. In other words, put so much crap out there that nobody can sift through it all to figure out what the truth is, because they're just repelled by it so quickly that they don't want to really care or know what's going on. Whatever it is, it doesn't have anything to do with me, right? That's not the place we want to be as ex-cult members. All the power is going right back to these institutions and groups in this media landscape. So this is why I've been railing against it for years. And John Dehlin's is hitting it, at 90 miles an hour into that stone wall. So he needs all the backup and support he can get at this time for that, if you care about those things. The ironic thing is, just to end this question on this bit, because it's just so fucked up. Years ago, one of the Mormon prophets, I think it came from that level, said from on high, "We are not Mormons. Stop using that word. That's not what we are. We are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No more Mormons. Don't call yourself a Mormon. Don't talk about Mormons. No more of that." And then they sue John Dehlin for having a podcast called Mormon Stories because it infringes and confuses people as to the identity of the church. These people are having their cake and eat it too, right? No, we're not Mormons, but we're going to sue your ass for using the word Mormon because it confuses people, and it never confused people. It's just bullshit, right, out of the Mormon church. So that's kind of what's going on there. Okay, Bored Black Sheep, what do you think of Scientology speedruns? Okay, so as said at the beginning, and I will reiterate quickly, it's not a good idea. It's counterproductive to activism and protesting, because it's not activism or protesting. It's just something to do for its attention-seeking behavior on the part of young people who literally have no better ideas. The real work that gets done to stop cults is long-term, boring work. It's not done on camera. It's done off camera. On-camera work is done to bring attention, and this is certainly attention-seeking behavior that is bringing attention to it. But the consequences, the long-term balancing act of attention-bringing versus what is going to happen to the people who are doing this, and what's going to happen to our ability to continue to protest and be activists against Scientology, all of that is going to get curtailed and become harder to do because of what these kids are doing. And that is why, in the equation of good, bad, is this a good thing to do or a bad thing to do, I'm saying, Leah's saying, Tony's saying, Tori is saying, like all the pro people who've been doing this for a really long time are saying, please don't do this. It ain't helping. Kids aren't going to listen, so whatever. But that's my position on it, right? And again, if there's something I'm really, really missing here, make the argument. Tell me why I'm wrong. But if it's because you're having fun, that ain't an argument. If it's because it feels good, that ain't an argument. And if it's because you're exposing Scientology, no, you're not. You're not exposing anything by running through a building. There's no new information being exposed in that activity. So that's what I got for that. All right. Young Matador. Hey, Chris, I see one of Grant Cardone's funds has made a series of hybrid deals, in which investor capital is deployed into LLCs combining real estate and Bitcoin. Jesus Christ. Just when you think it can't get stupider. Sounds a recipe for disaster, right? Yes, it does. Bitcoin is not something... Okay. Again, no finance expert here, not an economics expert, not pretending to be. I'm a people person. That's what I know about. Bitcoin is an unstable, insecure source of funding. It's a way of putting money into a thing and then trying to get more value out digitally. It's supposed to be very, very secure, unbreakable, unhackable, 256-bit encryption, blah, 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 blah. The problem, like with AI, the problem is not the actual technology. It's what people are doing with it and how it manifests in the world. And Bitcoin, by its nature, is not stable, not secure, not something you can rely upon. It's a scam. It's an investment scheme. And of course, people like Grant Cardone would be attracted to it like, flies to honey, right? Real estate is a similar scammy thing. Real estate is real estate. It's property, it's values, it's assets. It's a real thing. But what people do with it can get pretty fucking scammy, right? Shares of a company are a real thing. But look at all the first, second, third, fourth order things that people do with it. They trade on trades. They bet on bets on trades. That, it's like there's levels to this. And Bitcoin is one of those things that isn't real. It's an entire kind of world and infrastructure that's built around things that aren't real. So there's no core stable rock or foundation on which it's built that you can always rely on. It's always in flux. So by its nature, it can't be a stable thing. Now, somebody can explain all this and break it all down in the comments so that everything I'm saying is wrong. Awesome. But what I'm trying to talk about here is people's attitudes and reactions to the thing, more so than the thing. I'm sitting here talking about Bitcoin as this unstable thing, but what I mean is people can't have stable, secure positions with Bitcoin. Today, I could own $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. I have no idea, and neither do any of you, how much that $1,000 of Bitcoin is going to be worth 6 months from now. None of you know. So to base an entire economy on that, which is what some Bitcoin proponents are seeking, right? To base our reserve system on that, to base, a company's financial foundation on that is folly. It's stupid. It's the last thing you should be doing. And of course, that's why people like Grant Cardone are going to flock to it, because they are charismatic salespeople who can tell people just enough information to think they know something about it so that they'll give over their money so that they will lose that money and Grant Cardone will get it. That's the scam. And it's no different than multi-level marketing schemes, which Grant Cardone is incredibly familiar with. And it's no different from cons like Scientology, which is not a multi-level marketing scheme, but it's its own kind of con. So that's why I'm not surprised at all to hear this. I don't need to know any of the specifics of it because I already know who Grant Cardone is. And again, it's first principles. Once you understand the nature of a thing, you kind of can predict and understand what it's going to do. And Grant Cardone, anywhere near any source of money at all, is going to lie and cheat and steal it. That's what Grant Cardone is. So I don't really have to get into all the specifics and prove my case with whether Bitcoin is or isn't a stable form of currency to tell you Grant Cardone's going to fuck every single person he can over as hard as he can to make as much money as he can using this as a vehicle. That I know for sure, right? kind of how I approach this stuff. Right or wrong, whatever, but that's how I do it. Okay, so let's carry on here. We got some more questions. Exion does... Russell Nelson. Yeah, thank you, Angry Chode, for that. That's right. I knew it was one of the prophets who had said, no more Mormon. Stop using that word. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, Exion, does prefrontal dementia present itself in progressive loss of impulse control? Do you think that could be an issue with Trump? Yes. Yes. Now, Trump has other issues beyond... We don't have to go to dementia to explain Trump. Trump may or may not have dementia. I actually don't know. It's its own thing. What Trump has that I know for a fact is going on with him is NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, to a level that is a little hard to grasp. I've made a whole thing about that. We did a whole podcast about this, right? Because it's a level of thinking, quote unquote, that is not thinking. It is 100% feeling. It is going with your gut all the time. It's a worldview that doesn't include reality as part of it. Every single person in Trump's universe or Trump's world is a placeholder for a real person. It's not the real person. He doesn't represent real people in his world. It's a very, very, very down the kind of line, solipsistic, narcissistic kind of thing. Then he's got neurodivergent issues, big ones. Those two alone explain, and those two facts about him explain an awful lot of his behavior. We don't have to necessarily go to dementia, but it's an adequate term, I guess, for the way most people understand it. I'm trying to be a little bit more exact. And I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not going to get into all the niceties of the differences between these things, other than to say what I said. Trump has there is no impulse control. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. I've already... No need to go further. Fighting back against hell. Okay, wow, that is a name. How did the guy in D.C. miss the biggest head in the room? He didn't even get a shot off in that room. Facts are still coming out on all of this, and it is debatable whether the guy was even the one who was shooting right now. It might have been the cops shooting at him that were the shots that were fired, that were heard. I have not seen yet a picture of a gun or, what this man came armed with. So there's no facts here yet for me to sift through with this. And I wonder if there are going to be. Trump's assassination attempts have been remarkable in how underreported and underinvestigated they are. And that's the most noteworthy thing about them from my mouth right now. I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories. You all know how I feel about that. I refuse to connect dots that don't connect right now with facts. So I'm not going to go into any of that. There's all kinds of... What is interesting to me and what I think is noteworthy is how fast the immediate reaction to this news we heard yesterday about shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner is how quickly, like immediately, the responses all over Reddit and Blue Sky, which are the places I'm on, were uniformly bullshit. It didn't happen. It's a false flag, fake thing. There was no lag in that coming out as the response. Nobody even believed it was a real attempt. That says more about the state of things right now than the fact that somebody may or may not have taken a shot. Every single president, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but every single president through history has had numerous assassination attempts made against them. Everyone. How much you hear about it is another matter, and how much they're investigated, what's done about it, that kind of thing. Has been more a reflection of the culture and times in which these attempts are happening than it's been about the fact that it happens, because it happens to all of them. That's why the Secret Service exists, right? So, you know, I'm not somebody, and just to be clear, just to be super, super clear, right? I'm not somebody who is ever going to sit here at this mic and ever endorse political violence. You're just never going to hear that from me. I'm not okay with it. We, as I said earlier today, the solutions to our problems are not getting rid of people. It's getting unified and creating some more solidarity again. From our level, from you and me, that's the most effective thing we can do. And wear our hats, you could say, do our jobs as citizens. Show up, vote, learn what you're voting about. Don't just, cast party only kind of thing. Know what you're looking at and what you're dealing with. And know that so that you'll recognize the right people to vote for, right? Not just the people saying the right things, but the people who know the right things, right? Like, for example, how are you not going to have gas that's going to cost you $10 a gallon 8 or 9 months from now? Do you know? Do we have leaders who know? We should, right? And we need to know about that kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing I'm suggesting we pay attention to. All right, Dandy Warhol, are you still in touch with your son? Yes, I am. He was recently married, in fact. Josh is doing great, and that's as much as I'm going to say about him because he's a private figure. Japan of Green Gables, do you have any advice on writing a book? I've been struggling to turn my PhD dissertation into one, and the text gets growing longer. Oh my God, tell me about it. Half the job of writing is figuring out where to bring out your scissors. Sometimes less is more. I've really been appreciating that actually with cooking lately, just as an analogy, right? I was really, really, really into like spicing up with like 20 different spices, and sometimes that's fine. But sometimes there's a lot to be learned in practicing what's the right combination of 3 spices that are just going to kill right now, right? And what would be like a 2-ingredient sauce that would just nail this right now? Thinking that way, thinking in the less is more mode can sometimes bust open how to think about what's important in your writing. I can only, of course, give you general advice, Japan, but this is where other people's feedback, at least for my process, the way that I do things as a writer, getting the feedback from other people is where that has been most helpful to me in figuring out what to cut out. As you guys know, I think all of you well understand what an over-explainer I am. I am just over explain stuff. I don't need to do that. So I needed editorial feedback to help me understand how much is too much. Where did the audience actually get it? And I kept going just to make sure they get it, because that can be annoying, right? I don't have a better way of knowing how to get where to figure out where those scissors should come out than to get feedback from other people, right? They don't necessarily have to read the whole thing. You don't have to, do that big of an ask, but just give them snippets of stuff. Maybe you suspect something's a little off here, or there's just too much, or I'm trying to make too much of a case. And of course, with a PhD dissertation, it's a little hard to say there's too much here. I mean, I've seen these dissertations that are like full packages of like 1,500 pages once you get all the appendices and attachments and everything. But the way that I've gone about it is through that process of editorial feedback. So I hope that helps in that. Yeah, that's what I got for you on that. Okay, RAI 8547. Do you know Jonathan Burke and the AOGP? This is the Advanced Org of the Great Plains, an independent Scientology group. In the independent, he is in a lot of controversy for getting PCs to buy intensives and then not delivering services. If so, have you heard anything about him? Okay, so somebody asked me about AOGP a few weeks ago. And I said I put it on the back burner. I was going to go look into it. And I did a little tiny bit, enough to know exactly what you're talking about here. There have been controversies. So the Advanced Org of the Great Plains is an independent Scientology group put together and run by Jonathan Burke. And John and I have had run-ins many, many, many years ago, like a decade ago or something, where I think I used to, look, let me own this right now. Okay, let me just say this like real bluntly. I used to be a real fucking asshole when it came to talking about independent Scientologists. And I was very judgmental, and harshly so. And I regret that. I really do. I wish I hadn't come down with so much attitude in that direction, right? Because I ruined some relationships doing that I kind of wish I hadn't. There's no need to. Right? It's like getting overly harsh about politics or overly harsh about religion. It's like, yeah, it feels good in the moment, but then afterwards you're like, that's not me. That's not really, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I think that way? That was just dumb, because it gets in the way of just humans being humans, right? It's like, who cares what you think about God? Why does that matter? I'm not talking about people who are trying to impose their values on you. Let's, please, right? Hear what I'm saying. Don't interject your own stuff into it, right? I'm regretful that I was, so enthusiastic about that. Point made. So, that all being said, I pissed a lot of people in the independent community off. Okay, I did that. Independent Scientology is going to have, predictably, I don't think it's controversial, judgmental, or weird for me to say, that independent Scientology groups are going to run into all the same problems that a Scientology church runs into. Because they operate like Scientology does. The model is the same. So, and the tech is the same. So if you're trying to duplicate a destructive money-making scam, outside of that destructive money-making scam, it's going to look and act an awful lot like a money-making scam. And if you continue to use the policies and organizational directives of that group, then you're going to have consequences and blowback, because it's not a good system. It's not an ethical system. It's not a system that relies on or deals well with transparency and accountability. The system in Scientology is built to avoid transparency and accountability. So if you want to bring those values to independent Scientology, you're going to have to really do some hard thinking about how to go about doing that, because you're basing it on a system that isn't those things and is resisting those things. So to find or learn that people in the independent Scientology field or in that activity run into the same problems of, refunds and ethics and heavy ethics and sec checking and having attitude and telling people what's wrong with them and dealing harshly with them and all this stuff that happens. Well, why do you think it happens? Because it's a mirror of Scientology. How could it not happen? You have to give up all of Scientology's organizational bullshit, the entire concept of Scientology ethics. You have to lose all of it in order to do Scientology auditing in a non-destructive way. And then you have Scientology auditing, which is a framework of coercion. So even if you cleaned up all the ethics and cleaned up all the OSA, you still have a destructive, psychologically damaging framework of treatment or therapy. Right? This is how I see it. But I'm not so pissed at all the independent Scientologists anymore for not seeing it the way I see it. Right? And I used to be like so attitude about that. Why can't you see what I see, you moron? Oh, I just get so pissed, right? But that's my commentary on that. And I think you've noticed in that entire answer that there was not one personal judgment of Jonathan Burke. I don't know him. I don't know if he intends to rip people off or not. I have no idea. How could I? I know he's in a system that is built to rip people off. But that's not necessarily his fault. Again, victims and victimizers, right? Like if we remove the moral judgment out of this, it's just a fucked up situation. And it's really hard to unfuck it. Because it's built to fuck you. I know I'm being all profane right now, but that's what it is. All right, that's what I got on that. Let's see where that goes. Dandy Warhol also asks, do you remember the show Squeeze My Cans? Who did it? Yeah, Kathy Schenkelberg did that show. That was an interesting show. That was fun when she was out there doing that. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Xion, do you think movie theaters will be phased out because of electronic media and streaming and cost? Is the death of cinema upon us? No, I don't think it's dead, but I think it's going to become more boutique. But we'll see. We'll see. Here's what I know for sure about the future right now. Anybody who's telling you what the future holds, anybody, right? Has no idea what they're talking about. There are so many things in flux right now. Predictability is just, predictions are going to be a dime a dozen. You're going to hear plenty of them. But I'm telling you, very few people have any idea what they're talking about right now when it comes to, predicting the future. So in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of things in flux right now. Because, 10 years from now, streaming services could be dead. Just because it's happening right now doesn't mean it's going to be here forever. And a lot of people assume that that's the case. And they shouldn't. On the other hand, movie theaters here right now, maybe they're not going to be with us. It's possible. I think it's going to become a more boutique way of delivering media, but I don't think movie theaters are totally going to go away. XJW Vernon, do you think the Michael Jackson movie will not be very popular because of the allegations that Michael had and his court cases? Yes. I've already seen a lot of negative feedback to this Michael Jackson documentary because of that, or movie rather, not documentary, movie. I also understand it's just a pretty bad movie. So there's that too. I haven't seen it, of course. So I'm just being a little bit of a smartass there, but yeah. All right, Xion, who's your favorite comedian? Do you like Robin Williams, Mork, and Mindy? Wow, funny question. I will say that my favorite comedian is George Carlin, in terms of like all comedians, right? George Carlin was one of the best. And of course, right up my alley with all his social commentary. The guy got pessimistic as hell at the end of his life, which was kind of sad, but I know and understand exactly why. But by far, one of the funniest people I ever saw in my lifetime. And I got a chance to see him live too. In Santa Barbara when I was in high school. We saw George Carlin live. He was really good. So he's my favorite. I like Robin Williams. My wife loves Robin Williams. And I remember Mork and Mindy quite well. That was a fun show. All right, Winged Infinity. Do you have a solution theory as to how to rid the world of evil? Asking in sincerity, curiosity, being you were duped so hugely by a cult. There is no ridding the world of evil because evil is a viewpoint. Evil is a perspective of damage and harm and, people who do bad things. Bad is relative, right? Bad for me is good for you, vice versa. It's all relative to our position. And that's not to say that moral relativism is a great place to be. You have to be in a position of great wisdom to see the world through that lens. It's a lot easier to see the world through black and white. Evil, evil, evil. Good, good, good. My side good, your side bad. That's easy. Cavemen can do that. Anybody can do that. L. Ron Hubbard could do that, right? So in terms of ridding the world of evil, I think what most people are thinking about or wanting in looking at this is, wouldn't it be great if we could rid the world of selfishness, of greed, of resource hogging, of hoarding? Because that's the root of it. That's the root of the evil. Before we had societies and structures and social hierarchies like we have now for millions and millions of years, right, or for a million years, human beings, Homo sapiens, were egalitarian. It was a level playing field. And that system, as it existed, right, the nomad system, the aboriginal system, if you will, the way back, worked quite well for us for a real long time. We don't have a lot of recorded history as to tell us exactly how it worked, but we know it worked very, very differently from how things are now. In smaller groups of people where everybody knows each other's name and everybody is reliant upon one another, tribes of 20 to 50, 75 people max, you have a very, very different worldview and world outlook. And sharing resources and everybody getting along becomes a survival skill. We outgrew that when we started hoarding resources. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to store and collect resources, but then we got to hoarding them. And we created a social structure that had people in charge of those assets. And then the people in charge of those assets had to be armed, because they had to protect those assets from other people who wanted to take them. And that's the basis of original, right, city-city conflict and stuff like that. And that's where concepts of good leader, bad leader come from. In a nutshell, I'm oversimplifying everything, but you get my point, right? Is that it's the city that is hoarding the assets, everybody inside who's the beneficiary of that, that's a good thing, right? But on the people on the outside who don't have any access to those resources, they're evil, and we must go destroy them so we can take their assets, right? We can take their grain. We can take their wheat. We can take their barley. We can take their rice. We can take their women, right? Or their kids or whatever. So that's the basis of evil as far as I'm concerned. And that's kind of as old as the hills at this point. It's pretty old. And I don't imagine a world where we're going to return to nomad tribes. So we're going to have to learn how to evolve past that. And if there is anything that has ever represented what that would look like, as Pollyanna or dreamy as it might be, it's Star Trek. They don't have money in Star Trek. They don't hoard assets in Star Trek. It doesn't work that way. They figured out a different way to approach economics and resource distribution. They're not real super clear in Star Trek what they did to do that, by the way. They just say they figured it out, right? But the very idea or hope that we could has enthused the hearts and minds of teenagers, the world round ever since Star Trek first came out. And that was one of the reasons why. Because it imagines a future where that kind of evil doesn't exist. And that's a very, very, very basic kind of evil that we all suffer from, right, as asset hoarding and resource management. So my hot take. All right. Winged Infinity, have you ever personally been threatened by the cult? Threatened? No. Not threatened. Indirectly threatened, yes. Threatened with blackmail, some extortion, not extortion, but some blackmail. Some efforts to shut me down, an effort to buy my channel one time. A Scientologist reached out to me, offered me money for my channel. But not overtly threatened. I've not been on that list for OSA. Okay, Bored Black Sheep. Do cults manage to recruit from one another? Say JW successfully getting a Scientologist in, or vice versa. Are MLMs popular in Scientology? Yes, cults do cross-recruit where applicable or where possible. There are Christian Scientologists. There are Mormon Scientologists. They exist. They are out there. There's Utah. There's a Church of Scientology there. And there are people who are Mormons who are Scientologists. There's not a lot of them, but they exist. Could you be a Mooney and be a Scientologist? Be hard, but, maybe you could pull it off, right? Could you be a JW and be a Scientologist? Be hard, but you could do it. So, yeah, do they recruit from one another? Absolutely, they do. And I'm really glad you mentioned MLMs, because that's one of the key ways they do it, is you have non-religious meld up with religious. And MLMs are super popular in Scientology. My parents couldn't get onto Amway fast enough, right? As an example, back in the 80s. There are tons of Scientologists who do Herbalife, who do Amway, who do, these makeup MLMs. I mean, shit, I know Scientology celebrities who endorse MLMs. So, yeah, that's a thing, definitely. There is no rule anywhere that says you can only be in one cult at a time. All right, Xian, were you a Scientology minister with a collar and ability to marry people? No, I did not do I did the minister's course, but I did not get ordained. And I did not do, therefore, the minister internship, basically, so I did not marry people. My dad did. I didn't. Sun Yellow, how do you respond to Nora's critique of your new book that it is just diet Dianetics? I would say that anybody who says that hasn't read the book. Mehdi, have you ever been to the wonderful country of Belgium? I have not, but I really, really, really would love to go. I have dreams and aspirations of a European tour. There are so many things over there that I am dying to lay my eyes on. Roads I want to walk, paths I want to see, places I want to visit, food I want to eat, and cultures I want to interact with. And at some point, I hope at some point that will be possible. But that day is not today. Okay. Okay. I have to wrap up the show now. So sorry, Madi, I'm not going to get that last question in because it's time to wrap up. I have to keep it to 2 hours because I don't want to cut into Mark and Claire and the Aftermaths podcast and show and stuff and they go live. So 2 hours of fun. Thank you very much for coming around, listening to me blabber on at a mad rate, as always. Always appreciate your viewership and your support. I really do. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. If you are interested in actually supporting my work and supporting this channel and keeping these lights on and keeping this show going, Patreon is the place to join me. Even $1 a month would be awesome. More, of course, would be even better. I know it's tough times right now, and I know for some of you, you are supporting me already with as much as you can do. You are not who I'm talking to. If you're out there and you're taking advantage of and getting something from my work, I hope you will return that through some support through Patreon. And of course, get the book. It's good, and you will like it. All right, folks, I will see you guys soon. In fact, Wednesday, I'll be doing a live with Alex, continuing on with our breakdown on Scientology's administrative stuff, and there will be more content I am figuring out. I'm well into my script on the gay conversion therapy video, and I actually did a little interview with somebody who contributed some wonderful information for me on that, and I've got some other things in the work that y'all have requested, including, I'm curious, you guys tell me what you think of this. I've had a request to do, this is kind of ancient history at this point, but if you all are interested, let me know, in doing a breakdown or a review of Debbie Cook's email. Somebody emailed me and said, yeah, I really, really want you to do that. Let me know if that's something of interest to you guys, because it's a lengthy email, but if we pull or sort of maybe don't go through all of the extensive L. Ron Hubbard quotes in there, then it might be an interesting show to do. So y'all let me know. Okay, so see you guys soon.